Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. Glad to see you here tonight. We should have a very exciting night. So far, we have with us Lisa O'Hara and Jim BOUCK. And Bob Long should be along shortly. At least we hope he is. We hope he's not having technical difficulties. This will be a show different from our normal shows. We've had nonfiction authors before, but tonight it's a very interesting subject, an important subject. It's about UFO abduction, and Jim and Bob have written a book called Alien Abduction, The Control Factor, and Lisa has written a book called Abducted and Furious, a true story by Lisa O'Hara, and it's about her abduction that she has experienced. Hello, George Dismuke's on board. Don't want to miss
Hi,
this
George.
one. We don't either, George, and we really hope Bob is going to be able to join us. Paul Hollis says, hello, everyone. Hello, Paul. Joe Congo says, hi, Rob and Joan. Hi, Joe. Glad you can join us tonight. And James Ricard said he's looking forward to it. I know he said he had a UFO story. And hi, Chanel. Glad you shared. I did want to say one thing before we get into discussions, and that is that recently our government has admitted that they have 143 what we now call UAPs, which we used to call UFOs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. And they don't know what they are. They know that they're real. They know that they're happening. They know that the pilots of our fighter jets have been seeing them. We know that our men on ships to sea have been seeing them, and they've actually swarmed the ships and the fighter pilots. Our government has said maybe it's another country, maybe it's some natural phenomenon that they don't understand. But if it's another country, my question would be, why for hundreds of years has this been going on and no other country has used this technology against our country? It seems to me it was something that they wouldn't miss. In Aurora, Texas, a UFO crashed on April 17th, 1897. It was written about in the paper quite extensively, and it said that they were having a funeral for the little fellow the next day because that was the right thing to do. The pilot, they said they could tell he was not of this earth. So that was from the 1800s. We've all heard of Roswell. Hello, Trish. Welcome to the show. Anyway, that's enough for me.
And I just wanted to say, Meet the Author podcast, we strive to engage in conversations that are going to help people, not just introduce authors and promote their book sales, although that is a fringe benefit, and that's a good thing because that helps get their word out. But our guests all have a story behind their stories, and I think it's important to get those stories out there. So with that said, we're going to, and Bob will be along hopefully in a couple of minutes here to join us. Here's, I'd like to introduce Lisa O'Hara. And Lisa, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
I'm a almost 60-year-old woman, and I have had abduction experiences apparently my whole life. I did some legal secretary work and a network administration, and basically, and worked in DOD. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I found out fairly early, about 4 years ago, that this was happening to me, and it was quite a scary experience. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, we'll hopefully get into that here shortly. Jim, welcome aboard. Tell us a little bit about your background there.
Oh, thank you. I just talked to Bob. He's just pulling in and we'll be getting in line. immediately.
Awesome.
Okay, you got that?
Yes,
yes.
he's pulling into his house right now, and he'll be online shortly.
Okay.
Got
Gotcha.
it.
We'll bring him in as soon as we
My name
can.
is Jim BOUCK. Okay. Okay. I've been with MUFON since 1992. I started doing research back in the 1960s and started doing investigation in the 1970s. And I've done probably a good 200 to 300 UFO investigations and probably a good 50 to 60 I've been or basically since I've got my election experience started more with
Okay, we just lost you again, Jim. Jim, yeah, we're losing
Okay,
Jim
I'm
because
sorry.
he's been having Wi-Fi problems.
I
Your abduction experience started when you started working with
when
Bob?
I met Bob because Bob was my mentor.
Right.
Okay, he didn't abduct you.
No, he might have. I don't know.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, the truth comes out here.
No, but Bob and I worked good together. I was a state director for MUFON in New York, and Bob was my assistant state director. And together, we were a pretty good organization, which is still running great now.
And they co-authored the book together. And let me just read you something from MUFON, actually. And this is pretty good. It gives you an idea. It says, MUFON is an all-volunteer, non-profit, charitable corporation and the world's oldest and largest UFO investigation and research organization. Our goal is to be the inquisitive mind's refuge seeking answers to that most ancient question, are we alone in the universe? The answer very simply is no, whether you have UFO reports to share, armchair UFO investigator aspirations, or want to train and join our investigation team, MUFON is here for you. So that's MUFON's directive and their invitation to everybody.
So, Jim, how big is MUFON anyway? How many investigators would you say?
I'm not sure about investigators, but I believe that they have a 4,000 membership worldwide.
Okay.
And
all right.
Every country and every state has their own director, state director or country director, and with numerous investigators. When I was running New York State, I had 19 investigators.
Awesome.
I'm not quite sure how many they have now.
Okay, that kind of gives us an idea then. It's pretty extensive. And you all kept pretty busy.
Oh yeah. We would average quite a few sightings and at least 100 or more during a year.
Okay. And of course you don't just take the information down and move on, even though you're called MUFON. A little humor there. Very little. But it takes, from what I was reading, weeks to go through the process for on the average?
Unless it is just a flyby sighting.
Okay.
Which can be investigated over the phone because there's really not that much information. The investigator will go to the scene, right where the sighting was,
okay,
meet with the witnesses and kinds of tests and measurements.
Okay, cool.
That's good.
So it could take weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's anything to investigate. But if it's just a flyby, then it can be done over the phone. Right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Which
Right.
the one I had in May, which I'll share with people now while we're waiting for Bob, was a flyby. Right? the one that I told you about. It was
Yep.
nothing to investigate. So in May, we went camping at a campground in St. Mary's, Georgia. And the state park that we were staying is right next to a naval station. It's the only atomic submarine base in the United States. And since I know UFOs are attracted to nuclear bases and nuclear equipment and silos and all that kind of stuff, I looked at Rob and I said, oh, maybe we'll see a UFO. Haha. And for those of you who don't know, Rob is a retired air traffic controller. So we actually spend a lot of time looking at the stars and the sky. And he always knows the traffic flight patterns, etc. Bob is here.
Hey,
Hi, Bob.
Welcome, Bob.
Yay.
Better late than never, they say.
that's what we say.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard.
Let me
Thank you.
finish. I'm just telling them about what happened at St. Mary's, Georgia. I'm going to tell them real quick. Don't forget to put your earbuds in.
Yeah, they're
He's
in.
got 'em in.
Okay, good. I heard, I'm hearing really bad feedback.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
anyone else hearing feedback?
Yeah.
Yeah, me
I
too.
don't hear any.
Jim doesn't hear any? Okay. So anyway, oh, it's bad.
How's that?
Okay, let me try something.
Let me see.
I'm wearing
That's
hearing aid.
I think.
no, your
no, it's
hearing
not
aids
your
are
hearing
fine,
aids.
Jim. No, it's fine.
It-
Whatever Bob did fixed it, right?
I think so.
So
Everything-
we
you
were-
can hear me good?
we can hear you good.
Okay.
We were sitting looking at the sky, and we'd already known what all the flight patterns were, and we'd been watching. Thanks, Paul. You still hearing it? You still hearing it too, James? Let us know. It's fixed.
I
Okay.
hear anything.
All right.
Okay.
It's fixed.
Our audience fixed it.
So we knew what the flight patterns were. We'd been looking at them all day long, and the jets that went by, you could hear them, you could see the contrails. And so we're sitting together side by side and looking at the sky. And I say to him, because we're paranormal investigators and you don't want to feed anything to anyone, I said, do you see that silver plane? And he said, no. Which one? And I said, well, it's right over the tree line. It's a long silver plane. It's bright. It's shiny. It's huge. He said, no, and I don't hear anything. I said, I don't hear anything either. Well, I knew it wasn't a plane. It looked like a tube. It was a silver tube. It had no nose. It had no tail. It had no wings. And I didn't want to say, hey, look at the UFO. So I kept saying, it's over there. It's over the pine tree. Look over to the right, below that big cloud and just above the pine tree. It was giant. It was making no noise. He kept saying, no, no, no. And then it disappeared. Okay. So I said, oh, it must have gone behind a cloud. So I was up to chapter 10 in their book, Alien Abduction, The Control Factor. And I continued reading the book the next day, and I came to chapter 12, and the heading was, why do some people see UFOs and the people right beside them don't see it? And I was just like, that's good news. I'm not crazy.
So it's
So
a
that
common occurrence.
that would be a flyby report to you that you could take over the phone, right? Right, Jim?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Bob, now tell us a little bit about yourself. Everybody else was
Yeah.
able to introduce
Like a little
themselves.
short paragraph blurb.
Okay, well.
Your entire life all wrapped up in a little blurb.
I became, well, I guess I've been interested in ufology my whole life, but it really kind of became more rabid during the mid-'80s. And, I started as an independent investigator, and then I joined MUFON, and then I got involved with Intruders Foundation with Bud Hopkins. And just one thing led to another. And I've worked with over 100 abductees at this point. And I'm just trying to find the answers and help the individuals that are involved.
Okay.
Now, remember, people, we want your comments and your questions. Everyone's being very quiet.
Right. Right. Everyone's on together. All the guests are on for the whole show tonight. And you can ask questions to any of them at any time.
Yeah.
Usually we have the show a little different than that.
Yeah, we're running the show a little differently today.
We'll have 2 book giveaways during this hour. Not yet, though. We'll wait a little while on that. We were talking the other day, and it also addresses it in your book there, either Bob or Jim, that the abductions seem to go along family lines.
Yes.
That's what they, all your, go ahead.
It has to do with genetics. The people who have close encounters usually have their parents have had close encounters, and usually their children end up having close encounters.
And this is based on the research that you've done with the actual reports, right?
Yes. Yes. When you're investigating someone who's had a close encounter, and quite often they'll allude to, well, yeah, my dad saw one of these. He saw them all the time, or my mom saw one that landed out in our field or something, and then just one thing leads to another, and more stories start coming out where there's a long family history of people that have had seen UFOs or had close encounters, or even they may refer to them as a spiritual nature even. But yeah, it runs along family lines.
Right.
James says it's all just so fantastic.
It is.
And
it
Trish said, when I was about 5, I am very sure I saw a flying saucer in Chicago. Oh, and Kirsten.
One of my kids does EC5, not sure of that terminology.
CE5, close encounter.
Close encounter 5. Basically meditates, then stares at the night sky and sees all sorts of UFOs. I'll be trying this soon when I get around to having time. Kirsten's a pretty busy person.
Kirsten's a very busy person. She's an author and a publisher.
Yeah.
So from what I know of that's from Dr. Stephen Greer. That's what he does and what he promotes. Okay. So Paul has a good question. All right. So why do some people see a UFO and other people do not?
Buy the book, Paul. No, I'm just kidding. No, you should buy the book, but maybe one of you guys can give a little.
It's in chapter 12.
These entities have learned a lot about us and how our brains function. And part of having people that, having it run in family lines along genetic lines also means that you have the built-in hardware, if you will, for them to communicate and also to control you. As some may already know, everybody who has some type of a close encounter also has some type of gifts, where they're clairvoyant or clairsentient, or they have premonitions or what have you, but they're wired a little bit differently. And not that everybody that has a gift like that is an abductee, but every abductee that I've worked with has that type of gift, and that allows them to communicate with you and have some control over you. So over the years, I've talked to dozens of people who initially thought they saw not an alien, but they saw a dead relative, or they saw something else that wasn't really what it was. Bud Hopkins always had this one story he told where one fellow felt that he was being watched, and he was driving down this country road, and there was a cow pasture alongside the road, and this cow was running along the fence line, looking at him, and he was doing, you know, like 45, 50 miles an hour.
Nothing weird about that.
No,
Wow.
and you know, apparently it's a thoroughbred cow. But
I would say.
you know, another one that comes to mind was a gentleman said he was telling me he pulled off the road one night because this huge owl was standing along the side of the road. And I said, well, was the owl injured or something like that? No, it was just standing there. I said, well, how big was it? He goes, oh, it was about 4 feet tall. Okay.
Here's another question.
Did we answer that one?
Oh, did we answer? So, oh yeah.
They have the ability to make you see
Gotcha.
what they want you to see.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, Paul.
That's the
So in
bottom
other
line.
words,
Okay.
if a person is what we call a sensitive, then the UFO people can communicate with them better. So Joe Congle has a question for whoever wants to answer. Years ago, I read a book called God Drives a Flying Saucer. The author suggests that God could have been a super technological being rather than a supernatural one. Are you familiar with the book? And if so, what are your thoughts?
Well, I've heard of it. I've never read it myself. I don't know if Jim has or not. Cows run about 25 miles an hour.
So yeah,
You know,
that wasn't enough. James Ricard says maybe the owl was Mothman, you know.
You know, it.
I don't know if anybody can hear, but I have no sound.
You know,
Identity.
does God drive a flying saucer? I don't know. I usually don't mix religion and UFOs because as a friend of mine who was a Christian counselor said to me once, I got her to read John Mack's book, Abduction, to get her take on it. And after she read it, she said, well, they're demons. They're obviously demons.
Yeah.
So, you know, I usually don't mix religion in with it myself.
Trish said, I think Jim said he lost sound. He did say that. So I'm hoping he got his sound back. If he didn't, he can pop off and come back on. Can you hear us, Jim? No, he's frozen again. He's been having trouble with his Wi-Fi all night since even before we came online.
Yeah.
Genevieve says, hi, my friends. Yeah, I think that, you know, I think that we'll leave religion for
probably put that on
each
the side.
person to decide for themselves.
Right.
Yeah, agreed.
And it's, you know, everybody can believe what they want to believe.
All sorts of
Did
noises
someone
there.
hear that
Yeah.
bell ring?
Yeah.
Jim says he has no sound.
Yes.
Okay.
So he's going to come back on. That's what he did.
Yeah, if he goes out and comes back in, then sometimes that rights itself.
Trish said, my question is for Lisa. How did you find out you were being abducted, and is it still happening? By the way, I just called you Lisa because I'm originally from Boston, so sometimes that happens.
So-
Sorry.
So
No
you're spelling your
problem.
name wrong. You need an R at the end.
I know. I found
Thanks,
out.
Joe.
No problem, Joe.
I found
No
out
problem.
with, you know, because I started meditating. I had some other things going on, and I meditated a lot. And so I guess finally I got my vibration up to a certain level where I could feel the ETs when they entered my room. And my spirit guide, Korrig, told me when I asked him, what is that horrible, negative, oppressive feeling in my room? And he said, it's the ETs. They've come to get you. And so
That's how she found out. So Lisa comes at it from a metaphysical perspective, and other people come at it from other perspectives. And I'm sure you've run into that, Bob, right? People of
Oh,
all
sure.
different kinds of
Sure.
beliefs.
You know, most of the time it's someone that's just had a UFO sighting that was exceptionally close. Or they had an oddity where they had some missing time involved and they felt that it was strange. I'll give you another story. A woman that I interviewed here, oh gosh, probably 15, 20 years ago. She was picking up her child from after school practice and they had a 15-minute drive from the school to back home. And along the way, they spotted this huge delta-shaped craft. She said it was probably 300 feet from tip to tip, and they were watching it, and they got scared and hopped back in the car and went speeding down the road. When they got home, it was like 2 hours and 15 minutes later than when they left the school, and it was a 15-minute drive.
Much like Betty and Barney Hill.
Yes.
Same
And sometimes it just starts with a sighting like that, and it may or may not have missing time depending on how close the encounter is. But then they start investigating, or they start having dreams or flashbacks of something else. It starts a number of different ways.
And then Trish says, Bob, do you find that people are abducted only once or many times?
I find that people are abducted their entire life.
Yep.
It's most prevalent in their childbearing years. So people are taken, and genetic material is removed from them for the purpose of reproduction. It happens less after their prime years. They may have other tasks to perform along the way, but generally it starts in early childhood, and sometimes ends in the 40s and 50s.
Okay.
So it's generally, I know, Dave Jacobs had one guy, I think he was taken something like 116 times in a year.
Oh, gosh.
Oh my goodness.
I
That'll get old pretty quick, right?
I would think so. I don't know what, and that number could be wrong, but it was an extraordinary number of times this guy claimed that he'd been taken in the course of a year. And typically, I've talked to people that would happen a couple times a week, and then nothing happens for months, and then it would pick up again. So generally it's from early childhood.
Okay.
James says, how does Lisa feel about that? And I believe he was referring to the fact that it's to take genetic material.
Yes, I feel that a lot of my genetic material was taken, including my eggs. I don't know what reason, but I was awakened to the phenomenon when I was in my 30s. I just didn't know what I was awakening to. I had a lot of activity of sleepwalking, night terrors, and I believe they took all of my eggs at that time. And I didn't. And I also think I have been abducted my whole life, and it's continuing. So,
and let me say that Lisa's book is called Abducted and Furious. So, Jim, that kind of gives you an idea how Lisa feels about that. She's furious. Joe Kunkel has a really good question. Do most people who have been abducted need to be hypnotized to remember the experience? How would you recognize the signs?
No, people do not have to be recognized. You find that quite often, just natural memory, people will have trigger memories. They'll see something that reminds them of the experience that they had. Like we were talking the other night. I had one of my people who was on a business trip over in England, and they were sitting in this big round table surrounded by people, and the fellow across the way had a shiny pen that he was twirling in his fingers, and this person suddenly had a flash in their mind of an alien hand twirling some kind of a funny looking device, and they kind of flipped out, had to excuse themselves from the meeting, and and ended up calling me. But you quite often they'll have memories of something happened last night. They'll have people have woken up with marks on their body, tree leaves in their bed, mud on their feet, and had no idea how it got there. And of course, it could be sleepwalking. However, leaves from the top of a tree are a little bit more hard to stick between your toes. But
Lisa has pictures in her book of the marks that have been left on her body that she's taken pictures of.
Quite often there's characteristics where if people are being taken and they don't know it yet, they're not aware of it, they'll kind of seek out jobs where they're around people. Especially they'll work nights in well-lighted areas. Quite often they'll leave their lights on at home all night. They'll go around before they go to bed and check the windows and doors. Not that they know why. It's just they feel like they want to keep somebody out, and they don't know who that somebody is. Mm-hmm. And they'll develop certain behaviors like that. Yeah. That once you understand what's happening, it makes perfect sense. But not having that information yet, or not having that understanding yet, it sometimes seems odd to them. They don't know why they're doing it, or they feel like they're being watched all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to say right now that Lisa has never met Jim or Bob before until we had a pre-show talk with them on Monday, and she wrote her book independently of them, and they, of course, co-authored their book. But both Lisa and Jim and Bob feel that there is mind control involved, and that's why people don't remember, because they're having like a memory wipe. So I just wanted to make that clear, that all three of you didn't know each other. Two of you did, obviously, but Lisa didn't know the two of you. But Trish Pipkins asked, what do you think about the recent reports released from the U.S. government?
I think they should be better liars. They've certainly had a lot of practice.
It's the same thing we went through back in the 50s and 60s when they tried to deny everything. All they're doing is whitewashing it a little bit, saying, well, there's something out there. We just don't know what. Not telling us what they do know.
Right.
Tell us what you know. That's what we want to know. And I want to know, are you involved in any way?
I find the government reports always very disappointing, and I knew this ultimately wouldn't be any different than it ever is.
Right.
That's right.
We need to take a break.
We have to have a little commercial. We'll be right back, and then we're going to have to, wait a minute, let's do this one. Ha ha ha, they are really bad at it, lying, she means. But what is crazy is how many people just listen to them.
Well, that's the truth, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to take a little break. When we come back, we'll do our first book giveaway. Well, we'll do both of them. But
because the time is going fast.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Hang on, guys.
We'll be back in a minute.
Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE-DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam, there you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com.
At Indie Booksource, you can shop by genre or by author, and you will be buying direct from the author's main purchase link. We offer hundreds of titles in formats that include ebooks, paperback, hardbound, and audiobook. Support an indie author. Visit indiebooksource.com today.
In a world where advancing technology is outpacing crime solving, the O'Rourke team continues their relentless pursuit of justice. Bioprints is the first book in the O'Rourke crime novel series where it's high-tech crime versus old-fashioned detective work. Visit carternovels.com or amazon.com and check out Bioprints today.
WLFE Digital Broadcast Network presents Variety Unlimited Television. Watch shows like Meet the Author Podcast, The Bipolar DM, Just Cindy, Card Pulls and Coffee, Unfiltered Talk with Bryce, and more. That's right, our shows are your shows on WLFE Digital Broadcast Network. And now, back to the show.
Hello, we are back. Let's get the first
Author giveaway.
book giveaway here. And the first one we'll do is this one right here. There we go. And this will be for Alien Abduction, the Control Factor. First person to email the first, how many? 3? 2? 1?
2.
2.
The first 2 people.
Okay, we can read it as it comes along here. U.S. only. The first 2 people to email Nitesiter, that's NITESITER at yahoo.com, will win a paperback copy of Alien Abduction, The Control Factor.
That's the book by Jim and Bob.
Yes.
Okay. And now our second book giveaway is Lisa's. That's Abducted and Furious, How I Fought Back and How You Can Too, true story by Lisa O'Hara. And her book giveaway is,
Oops.
you got to hide the other one before we can put, oh, there it is. The first 3 people to email L'Ohara, OHARA, at protonmail.com will win an ebook copy of Abducted and Furious.
And of course, that one is worldwide.
Yes, those are ebooks and those are worldwide. And let us say that Jim and Bob's book is going to be just in the U.S. Okay.
Right.
Now we do have some questions that have come in since we went on break. Dinah Roseberry says, with all the horrible stuff going on in the world today, do you think they will insert themselves? And if so, help or take over?
Good question.
Who would like to field that one?
Hi, Dinah.
I don't see anything good coming out of it, but I may be wrong. I'm hoping.
I think
I'm
they
wrong.
probably already have inserted themselves by influencing certain individuals.
Wow.
You know, if they can influence someone that they're abducting and make them go along peaceably when they don't want to, or coax them to, you know, give them the information in their head that they should just get up in the middle of the night and walk outside.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Why can't they affect someone of you know, in an important position? So I don't know for a fact that they have, but I certainly surmise it could happen.
So Kirsten said, pyramids and other large monuments such as Stonehenge and Easter Island, etc. Alien help, ? I don't believe in ox cart and lots of people build those locations, especially the pyramids and Sphinx. Thoughts?
Well, we can't replicate how they built them today. Maybe they knew something we didn't. I don't know. I couldn't tell you one way or the other if alien technology was involved or not. It certainly would be an interesting possibility, or maybe they were just much better craftsmen than we are today. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. At the beginning of the show, I talked about the Aurora, Texas UFO crash on April 17th of 1897, which has always been very interesting to me. The whole town saw it. The whole town went out to help. They didn't know what was going on. This is 1897. And then they they buried the pilot, which they said they knew was not of this world, because that was the Christian thing to do, to give him a proper burial, and they did that. So that we know happened back then. And then we have Christopher Columbus. He was talking about one of the ships, the UFOs that come out of the sea. He saw it come out of the sea, and it's reported in his logs. So people have been reporting this for millennia, really, not just hundreds of years.
So it's very possible they could have had help.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're dealing with technologies. If you look what we have accomplished in the last 100 years, from going from the Wright brothers creating an aircraft to landing on the moon, if you will.
Yeah.
We've done a tremendous amount of things in a 100-year span technologically. Now picture some alien race that is 500,000 years ahead of us.
Exactly.
Their technology would be like magic. Just totally unable for us to understand it. I mean, they certainly the craft certainly do some amazing things. And, in their abduction sequences, they certainly do some amazing things with taking people through solid objects, walls, windows, doors, stuff like that. And we certainly don't know how that could possibly happen. But, yeah, I think, if you prescribe to the ancient astronaut theories, they've probably been coming for thousands of years. These races are so far ahead of us as far as technology. They've been traveling around our galaxy for quite a while, and we're just a stop along the way.
Boy, that's for sure.
That's true. Joe Congo says, how can anyone... Oh, go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say, it makes you wonder, with all that time, how much they've affected what is going on in this world and what we are going through.
Yeah, they sure messed it up.
Yeah, it does make you wonder that, doesn't it? Joe Congo says, how can anyone not believe that we are not alone? The universe is just too big for that to be the case. Yet there are still non-believers. Do you believe that the government is primarily responsible for that mindset?
Not necessarily. People believe what they want to believe, and things that scare them, people tend to think along the lines of something that isn't going to scare them. They don't want to think about aliens, then they don't exist. If you approach it with an open mind and you look at some of the pictures that they've done of deep space from the Hubble telescope, where there's literally thousands of galaxies in a picture of the sky as wide as your thumbnail, it's impossible to look at that and go, yeah, we're it. This is only life. You might argue that there's thousands of planets with intelligent life. I'm not sure this is one of them, but
I think you might be right about that.
But yeah, and I think the government has downplayed the whole thing because they can't control it, and anything they can't control, they don't like. Right. So, but I don't necessarily know it's their doing to create this mindset within the public.
Next question for Lisa. Do you know if either of your parents had any experiences like you have?
Yes, my mother was, I think, somewhat psychic. Her mother was. And my dad hated science fiction, but he wasn't the type to talk about anything. So, and he was in the Army. And so I think that there's some sort of lineage there that was going on, and these things have been going on for a long time.
James had asked, does anyone remember the pilot's name? If you mean the pilot in Texas, James, the pilot was dead. And okay, Jim also says I think there are around 400 people in Aurora today. Yeah. I don't think that he was alive. He was dead. And he was badly burnt, but they still felt like he wasn't of the world, but they gave him the burial anyway. And then Trish Pipkin says,
I just did that.
oops, sorry. I don't think the pilot in that crash in Texas gave a name. No, because he was dead. I read that apparently that grave was dug up and a metal pole was laid in the ground. I know that MUFON has actually gone out there and done investigations on that site. They called him something on his tombstone. Oh, that I didn't know, James. That's interesting. Which was a rock. Did they check the pilot's pockets? Maybe he had a driver's license. It was 1897, Paul.
Who said he was wearing pants?
That's a good question. Oh,
yes.
goodness.
Oh, Lord. Oh, my gosh. We should really get up some of there. Okay, let's open up this can of worms. Why not? I do believe there are ETs here on Earth. I also think they're like humans, so some are good and some are bad. I agree.
Well, people have seen the progression of hybrid species, a cross between the two of us aboard craft for quite a while. Dave Jacobs did a lot of research on this, and he was firmly believed that there were functioning hybrids amongst us. Now, I've always looked up to Dave. He's been right on so much stuff, so I can't say that I would doubt him. You know, I haven't run into anything like that specifically, but you know, with so much hybrid breeding in the last 3-4 decades, they got to be doing something with them.
Yeah.
And obviously they got older than infants, and actually they usually grew quite fast. But yeah, why wouldn't you be making a hybrid species that looks human if you weren't going to somehow interface those with humans?
Creepy.
Talked to people who have told me that they would be at certain places, even at UFO conferences or around the street. They would look at normal people, and then all of a sudden they would shift a certain way, and it would look like there was a mask on them, and under the mask would be either an ET type of head or the lizard type. And if they looked again at another way, it would look like a normal person again. Now, it's been more than one person that has told me this, so I'm not really sure how much you can go into it, but I've never seen one. I'm hoping to, but I want to be.
Are you sure?
You keep saying that.
Yeah. Are you sure?
Bob. At a distance, Bob.
At a distance. Okay, Joe Congo says, what are your thoughts on aliens and UFOs being under the oceans?
Now, Joe, that's exactly where I'm at.
Yep.
Because I believe they are there. But
Why not? That's the best place to hide.
Yeah.
I worked with a fellow. Yeah, I worked with a fellow down in Miami in air traffic who used to he was from Puerto Rico, and he used to take his family out to the west end of the west end of the island, and there's a lake out there.
Now they're all air traffic controllers. Remember that.
And he and his family saw a craft come up out of that lake and go straight off into the sky.
That's an air traffic controller.
While they're sitting there. And that's right near that deep trench right off. There's a huge, one of the deepest trenches.
The deepest part of the earth.
Yeah, just to the west of Mariana Trench. I'm not sure what the name of that one is, but it's right off the west end of Puerto Rico.
There have been there have been all kinds of UFO reports involving craft with water. Even where I live here in the Finger Lakes region of New York. I live on the middle finger of the Finger Lakes.
What does that say? What are you saying, Bob?
We're friendly folks around here. Seneca Lake, 1952, had two saucer craft that were observed going into the lake.
Wow.
But there have been people that have made a career just out of UFO sightings that are going underwater.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, Columbus reported one or more than one. So Dinah says this, maybe we are hybrids, LOL. People do say I'm kind of crazy. And Kirsten
No,
says,
you're not, Dinah.
no, we don't think she is either. And Kirsten said, at the very least, we have a fast cow and a 4-foot owl hybrid. And then Trish said, I find Travis Walton to be extremely credible. What do you all think about his case?
I've had the occasion to meet Travis, and I find that he is very credible. You know, he was Travis was always very. He was a go-getter. He was the daredevil. He would try anything. So, you know, when he jumped out of the truck and ran towards the UFO, people that knew him didn't think this was particularly an odd behavior for him. It wasn't unwise behavior, but it wasn't unusual for him because that was kind of the way he was.
Yep. Joe says he grew up near you. He's from Syracuse originally. And Trish says, we have explored more space than the oceans. Only about 5% of the oceans have been explored. Yeah, there could be anything
That's
down
true.
there.
And they know it.
And I like this one. Ned was the alien pilot at Aurora, Texas. Thanks for looking that up, James. That's the name they put on his tombstone, Ned.
I bet it was Nerd and the R fell off. No. Just kidding.
It's amazing. One of the things that I liked in your book, Jim and Bob, was that you talk about personal witnesses giving their account of what happened. And you said that we use that in a court of law and that it's counted heavier than circumstantial evidence. If you have a witness, you give that more weight than you do to circumstantial evidence, unless it's about UFOs. Then everybody just thinks you're crazy, right? Yeah. Well, you didn't say that part. I said that part.
Well, that's pretty much how it's always worked. You know, anecdotal evidence is given in court testimony for murder cases and things of very dire consequences if someone is convicted. And the witness testimony is held very high in the case of an eyewitness. And yet when it comes to something like this, again, we look at mindset and the fact that some people do not wish to believe. It's like the poster on the wall behind you too, is I want to believe. Well, there's an equal faction out there that does not want to believe.
They don't.
And will gladly do whatever possible to discourage others from believing as well.
Lisa, Dinah would like to know if you would tell a story from your experiences.
Sure. I had an unusual experience where I got cut on my knee from a recycle bin, and everything was fine. And then I was in bed and I was trying to go to sleep, and all of a sudden my knee started throbbing out of the blue. And I looked over, and there was a praying mantis standing next to my bed, trying to get me to go to her ship.
Wow.
And I didn't want to go. And she kept saying, will you please let me take you to my ship to fix your leg? And I thought, agree to get on a ship? Oh, no, I'm not doing that. So I was really scared. And but the next day, she took me anyway because my leg didn't hurt at all. So that's when I realized I had implants.
That's
Wow,
interesting.
that's very unusual too, because the praying mantis type rarely leave the craft.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
they rarely leave. They must have really wanted to talk to you.
they
And
must
they
have.
were very concerned because normally the small grays will do all the work off ship, and
Oh,
they will be the mantises are usually always aboard craft. So
wow.
they had to really want you.
Yeah, but why? That's my question.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I don't have
We-
that answer.
Yeah. So, and I had another experience with a praying mantis where seemed like a male because that one seemed female and came striding into my room and hit me on my lady parts with a tuning fork. It really hurt, and then he pointed at me, and I fell asleep.
Huh. Wow,
Wow.
that's interesting.
Usually they use a rod.
Oh, really? Is it a rod? Because I thought it was a spoon. It was some sort of metal. I didn't know what it was, but it hurt.
I've heard people describe a tuning fork like object before.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mhm.
Well, that's
Yeah.
sort of good. But what is it for? What happened to them? That person who had that experience?
I do not recall. You know, at this point, I've probably listened to testimony from 1,000 different cases,
Okay.
and you know, unless it's something that really stands out in my mind, they all kind of blend together after a while. And
Yeah.
so many of them are very, very similar,
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
which
James
adds to the credibility.
James
Yeah.
Ricard asked, do the Greys and praying mantis work together? But he had also said the true story of Travis Walton is better than any other. And you can find that on Amazon Prime. But do the Greys and praying mantis work together? And also, Paul Hollis wanted to know if the male still had his head.
As far as I know.
Yes,
Go
the
ahead.
mantises are usually higher up on the chain of command. You have the small grays, the taller grays, and then you have the mantids.
Okay.
No, this is all from the research that all the cases that you've studied and the things that have been reported to you, right?
Yes.
Bob?
Right.
Jim
Correct.
is trying to say something. Go ahead, Jim.
What I was gonna say was, I interviewed this woman who had been taken. Well, she recalled it in a dream. By a gray out to a wooded area, and they walked out to where there was a UFO sitting on the side or in the wooded area. And when they got there, it was a mantis that came out of the ship and scolded the gray because he brought her there when he shouldn't have, because they can't use her. She was too old and she couldn't have children. So the gray was scolded and reprimanded, I guess. And her next recollection was being back in her bed.
Wow.
So that goes to the mantises being, in charge of the
Grays.
Greys. Yeah. And
Right.
Lisa,
They were-
Dinah
they-
wanted to
they
tell
do
you
work
that was a great
together.
story.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jim. What
I
did
was
you just say,
gonna
Jim?
say that they do work together.
They do work together.
Okay. That's
Okay.
interesting.
Joe says, do you think an abducted person sees the alien in an image that is being projected by the alien, or are they seeing them for what they actually look like?
I think both.
Uh-huh.
It depends on what they want you to see. There's been instances, as I said before, that someone woke in the middle of the night to see their deceased father in their room talking to them, and as it progresses on, that this image morphs into a gray alien being.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
but the initial image was projected so that it wouldn't bring fear to the individual. It was an image of someone that they loved, and then it
Wow.
just kind of transitioned over. It's
Wow.
not super common,
One
but it
woman I
has happened.
interviewed, yeah, one woman I interviewed said that she woke up in the middle of the night and saw her grandfather walking into her bedroom. And as he got closer to her, the thought occurred to her, he'd been dead for about 10 years. And as it got closer, the image shifted and she could tell that it was a gray.
Wow.
But when she first saw it, it was her grandfather.
Well, in both of the books, you talk about mind control. So we shouldn't be surprised by that. But as you're saying this, but see, this is something new. I didn't know this whole
No.
part of it, component of it. But it makes me think of Skinwalker Ranch and how much stuff is happening there. And that's all, that goes back to the Navajos who had the land before any
Right.
white Europeans came here. And they all talk about, shapeshifters, the skinwalkers. So I wonder if that hasn't, we're getting into religion again and we shouldn't, but I think maybe, I wonder if that has something to do with it, if their shapeshifters are aliens.
Either alien or some other multi-dimensional being. I mean, we don't know. I mean, the UFOs, they could be from somewhere else in the universe. They could be from deep in the ocean, within the earth.
Yeah.
They could be in a dimension that is just a few vibrations off of ours, and they're living here. I mean, we don't know.
Right. Dinah says, God, I hate that middle of the night stuff. So, Dinah, are you saying you were abducted? Are you an abductee? Maybe you need to talk to Bob or Jim. Just wondering.
We
already
talked
know
about
Dinah.
Oh, you do know that.
Ah.
If you look at our book, I think it might indicate in there, Dinah was our editor.
Oh, Dinah. I should have read the name of the editor. I'm very sorry.
Oh my goodness.
Well, all right. Dinah thinks that's funny. She said, LOL. Anybody have any other questions or comments? It's going to take them a minute to type anything up. Why don't we put up the banners for them on where we can reach them?
Okay.
All
I'll
right.
go ahead and put the book thing up here again here too.
Yeah, the book giveaway is up there for you people to read.
To reach Bob, if you have any questions, it's ramAirBob@AOL.com, RAMAIR Bob@AOL.com. And he'll be happy to answer any questions that you send to him.
We're offering that in his name.
And for Jim, it's the same one as you're doing the book giveaway. It's Nightsider, NITESITER @yahoo.com. So if you have any questions for Jim.
Okay.
And then for Lisa, we've got her website is lisaoharaonline.com. You might want to visit that. It's a very nice website, very interesting. And also on Facebook, you could follow her on Facebook and look up Abducted and Furious and join.
And we should say that both of these books are available on Amazon. And we have a number of comments now.
Okay. Oops. All right, where are we now? Let's see.
Okay. Dinah says,
I'll let you
okay.
take that.
I have had experiences, but I talk out loud to them about not coming in the night. There you go.
There you go.
And that's what Lisa does also. Paul says, wow, very fascinating show tonight. Thanks to everyone. You're welcome. Does that mean we're out of time already?
I think Paul's blowing the whistle on us.
We
here.
are. Well, we're going to go over.
Yeah, we're over.
Everybody stay on because we're going to go
Paul,
over.
if you need to go to bed, go ahead. I know it's a little slow in Ohio, but...
no. Paul, don't take that for him.
Just kidding.
So many questions, but it's No, it's not over. Okay.
No.
So many
We're still here.
questions, but it's over. LOL. I just want to thank all three of you for coming on tonight. This was such a great show. We're staying on the air,
We're
people.
still on the air. The show
Thanks
is
for
the
the
show
great
must go
show.
on.
We're still on the air. Fabulous show, everybody. We're still on the air. Fantastic show. Thank you for this opportunity to hear from these wonderful authors on such a fascinating subject. You are welcome, but stay tuned. We're not going off the air. And Paul said, Paul says, I'm just getting up now.
He probably fell over when
James
I said
says,
that.
great.
That's probably it.
Yeah. Yes. He fell
Got to
over
be somebody
laughing.
out there with the questions.
Yeah.
Well, I have a little thing I just read a little bit about it today on Lisa, in your book. You talk about ETs and being narcissists.
Yes.
Okay. What can you give us a little bit on that?
I think my mother was an ET.
You're what?
Did I say that out loud? I said my mother.
Oh yeah, mine too. I think of them as narcissists. They don't care about us at all. They only care about themselves. They have their agenda. They're doing it. They don't care what we want. They don't care what we don't want. They don't care if we don't want to go. That's why I consider them narcissists. And the way they act, I think they're in collusion with the government, but maybe not. But, they're constantly trying to control the narrative. They're controlling you. And they're controlling, if what you see, what you hear, they're controlling you, every aspect of you. And that's what narcissists do. So that's why I think that.
Okay.
Okay. Here, this is an interesting question for you. I have heard there is something about people with O negative blood and being alien hybrids. What have you found about this?
Myself, I haven't.
I'm in trouble. I'm O
there's been different storylines of a particular blood type, but I can't really say that we've found anything concrete in any of that. At least not that we were capable of discerning. I mean, we're not into, analyzing blood, but, it seems like there's all different types of blood types that are abductees. It's nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. No
I'm
running
O-negative.
thread there.
Trust me, I'm not.
No.
One of them.
I'm O negative also. And all 6 of my children are O negative.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, that's unusual.
Well, Bob, do you have any final words for the audience? Bits of wisdom or parting
Well,
words?
I think if somebody's watching and they have an interest in this, and if they suspect that there may be something going on and they really want to look into it, they should probably start doing some reading and learn more about it. And if it bothers them too much, maybe they don't. But it's one of those things where I want to caution people who that might be looking into an odd experience, rather if it's an abduction event or not, is you can't put the genie back in the bottle. If it's something you really want to know, if it's something that you think about on a daily basis, or keeps you awake at night, wondering, well, then maybe you're a good candidate to look into it. If the whole thought of it just horrifies you, you got a busy life, and you really don't need one more thing in it, maybe it's something you should just leave on the shelf.
Good advice. Good advice.
James said that he heard that on Ancient Aliens about the O negative blood. Joe Congo says, do you think that at some point we will all have some kind of encounter with an alien being, all of us? Or are they picking and choosing from a particular pool of human beings?
Well, up to this point, they've been picking from a particular pool.
Yeah.
And I think it has everything to do with, how each individual is wired genetically that allows them to interact with ease. It's no different than the people who are sensitive, who are wired a little bit differently. You'll find other people that you can pick up stuff from, and you'll find others that it's like they're not even on the radar because they're wired differently than you are.
And that's why I could see the UFO and he couldn't
Right.
Yeah.
because we're wired differently. And James Ricard said they'll have us as pets. I don't like that
No.
idea.
No thanks.
And
I'd rather be a pet than dinner.
yeah,
Well,
there.
that's true. That's true.
The cookbook, yeah. Bob is like Morpheus. Do you want the blue pill or the red pill?
Perhaps, yes.
One more. Tricia said one.
Let's see. Okay, Trish says, Lisa, you're so right about them being narcissists. My hope is there are others who are better than that. Yeah, my hope is that too. I know, Jim, you think they're all bad, but Bob, you think maybe some good, some bad?
I think we're dealing with a number of different factions, different species, different plans for us, if you will. I'd like to think there's some benevolent ones out there that are looking out for our well-being. I know that there certainly are ones out there that aren't or don't appear to be. I could be wrong, but you know, when someone is taken and you know it kind of wrecks their life, for lack of a better term.
Changes it for sure, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. You know, some people can't wait to find out. Can't wait for the next abduction. I want to know what's going on.
Oh,
others are horrified every time it happens.
Yeah. Yep.
Jim, what kind of parting advice would you have?
Well, first of all, everything you see isn't going to be a UFO, even if you can identify it. But it is always good if you suspect it to notify MUFON. It's easy to go, just go to MUFON.com, fill out the form, let them know, and somebody will get back to you and look into it to either determine that there's a reasonable explanation for what it is that you've been seeing, or maybe it needs further look into. And it's always better sometimes to, but if it comes to abductions, then as Bob says, you've got to be careful because you may regret knowing. And a lot of people will get into the situation and wish that they never had, and just try to let it go away. Wait for the time to get back into normal lifetime.
Right.
Yeah, because you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Right. And I think it's important to remember MUFON is not a government agency.
No.
It's not a military agency.
No.
Yeah,
it is.
That made Bob laugh.
It's a private, volunteer, basically, organization, right?
Yeah. Right.
So that's a good thing. How about you, Lisa? How about any advice in closing?
I agree with Jim about not letting the genie out of the bottle because it's difficult. I'm a person who always wants to know the truth, and sometimes the truth isn't what it's cracked up to be. So make sure you know if you can handle the truth. So
good advice. I just want to say that, as I said earlier, both of these books are available on Amazon. I've read both of them. They're excellent. I mean, very well cited, and
Thank you.
think I really, really enjoyed the book so much.
Yes.
And when you read a book and you like a book, give a review. It helps.
Yeah.
And tell why you like the book, because that helps, because then like-minded people can then read that book themselves.
Right.
good point.
Right.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
That's good.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lisa.
Go ahead.
Did you say something?
Jim was talking. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, he's frozen.
He's frozen again. Okay.
But,
all right.
Do you want to know who won the books?
Do we want to know who won the book?
Well,
do you know already?
Yeah, I got the emails.
Yeah, who is it?
Who won the books?
the first two
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
Joe Conoco and Paul Hollis.
All right.
All right,
Way to go.
guys.
Congratulations.
You're going to really enjoy the book. It was
Yeah.
very well researched and very well cited. And I always like that in nonfiction books.
Yeah, yeah. And there's good humor in there too.
There
I'll
is
contact
really
them and their addresses.
good. Perfect.
Yep, I got mine too. I have 3 people: Joe Congle, D.P. Roseberry, and James Rickard.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Congratulations
Paul
to all of you
Hollis
guys.
says, yay. Trish Pipkin says, congratulations. And James Ricard says, this was as interesting as I had hoped. Joe Congo says, awesome. You won too, Joe. Two books.
No kidding. You're going to be busy for a while.
Yeah, you are. Actually, Alien Abduction, The Control Factor, which is Bob and Jim's book, is a very easy read. And it's funny. And it's, as I said, well-researched
Funny and
well
scary.
cited. It's funny and, well, it's funny because it's scary. So they have to have some comic relief in there or it would be too much.
And I like the way you told who was saying what. I think you did a really fabulous job on that. You know, when you had something to say and you'd put
it was Bob talking.
Bob talking, you know, that was very helpful. It was very good writing, I thought.
And Lisa's book is also very well cited and very well researched, and she gives those citations. So I always enjoy that myself. If I'm reading a nonfiction book.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
I think we had better sign
We're gonna
off.
say
Don't
goodnight.
forget,
We're
people, that after us comes Inside the Drag Closet. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
Yeah. We're going to talk about next week.
Oh, okay. Can you guys, we'll put you back.
No, we're going to leave them right there.
Oh, we're going to leave.
Yeah, we're going to leave them right there. They can stay.
Go ahead.
As long as they
can't wait
behave
to dig in.
themselves.
All right. They
Okay.
will.
Next week, next Wednesday, we're going to have mystery author Cheryl Payton on the show. She was scheduled a couple of months ago and was ill and couldn't make it.
Yeah, that was
had a
too
medical
bad.
emergency, so we got her rescheduled. And then Carrie Allen Stone, who's a crime and now he's sci-fi author, and he's a voiceover actor and has a pretty interesting career. So should be a very interesting show. And with that,
Well, Kirsten says
Oh.
she'll be buying both. She didn't email fast enough. That will teach you, Kirsten.
yeah, gotta type faster. Well, in Minnesota, it's so cold there that the internet kind of goes slow sometimes, right?
Minnesota.
Okay, so much
All right.
about Minnesota.
You
Anyway,
guys hang on. Don't go anywhere. Lisa, Bob, and Jim, we're going to talk to you backstage. And
and everybody else, have a good night. And until next time.
that's all, folks.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DB.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.